Visual jadi host. Visual. Visual host. Gak ada yang visual doang. Visual host belum masuk ya? Oke, tunggu ya. Siapa lagi Nova? Siapa lagi? Pinar 2, Pinar 3. Udah hostnya udah visual host. Itu si Farun udah masuk belum tuh? Udah.
Selamat siang Indonesia, apa kabarnya semua ibu-ibu? Pasti ada yang lagi di rumah, mungkin ada yang lagi nyetir, atau mungkin ada yang sambil sebelahnya anaknya online school. Pasti lagi sibuk ya, tapi saya seneng banget kalau di tengah kesibukan, Bapak Ibu semua masih menyempatkan diri untuk join dengan event kita hari ini. Karena hari ini kita punya event yang sangat penuh dengan edukasi dan penuh dengan pengetahuan untuk bisa menjawab kenapa sih harus yang living essential oil? Kenapa enggak yang lain gitu ya? Tapi jawabannya akan ada di event kita siang hari ini. Karena siang hari ini kita akan sama-sama, walaupun kita di Indonesia, kita bisa terbang. Kita akan terbang ke Utah, di mana di Utah akan ada Dr. Buch yang akan membimbing kita semua untuk ke The Gary Young Research Institute. Beliau akan membimbing kita untuk melihat peralatan-peralatan analisa yang sangat canggih seperti apa sih yang kita punya sehingga bisa benar-benar menganalisa essential oil dari yang living. Dan kemudian menentukan kualitas dari setiap essential oil di yang living. Lalu kemudian kita juga akan pergi ke laboratorium research and development untuk pengembangan produk. Di mana kita juga akan dibimbing melihat seperti apa sih ketika yang living ingin mengembangkan dan mengeluarkan produk baru. Jadi Dr. Buch akan membimbing kita di laboratorium tour. Namun kami juga baru mendapat update dari global, Bapak Ibu sekalian, kami minta maaf kalau untuk sesi Q&A, Dr. Buch tidak akan bisa join dengan kita. Tapi tidak kalah spesialnya, khusus untuk selesai lab tour dengan Dr. Buch, maka kita akan ditemani oleh dua orang yang sangat spesial, adalah Richard Carlson PhD, seorang Executive Director Research and Analytical Science. Kita juga akan ditemani nggak satu orang, dua orang. Orang yang kedua yang sangat spesial menemani sesi tanya jawab kita adalah Farun Koneru, Senior Director untuk Product Development. Sebelum kita jalan-jalan terbang ke Utah, kita sapa dulu yuk kedua orang ini. Hi, welcome to Richard Carlson and Farun Koneru.
Hello, Indonesia. So happy to be here and share this event with you tonight. I'm
Hello,
very
Lisa.
well. Hello, how are you tonight?
Oh, it's not tonight actually. Here in Indonesia, we are still 1 p.m.
How are you this
So we
afternoon
would
then?
sincerely
Yes.
from the deepest of our heart, thank you so much. We know it's midnight over there, but you are still there to support us and our market. Thank you so much. Maybe
You're
first,
very
Our
Richard,
pleasure.
do you want to say something to our market? And then after that, Farun, you want to say something to our market just to say hi to our members here? Please, Richard.
Hello, Indonesia. So happy to be here and talk to you about our seed to seal commitment and the wonderful things we do to make sure the essential oils that you get in your market are the best in the world. Thank you for your help.
Farun, please, if you want to say something to our members.
Hello, Indonesia. Happy to be with you all today. A big hi from D. Gary Young Research Institute from Lehigh, Utah. I'm excited for you all to learn about our lab and answer some of your questions. Hope you all enjoy the tour.
Yes.
Hope we will enjoy the show. For sure, we will enjoy the show because the show is very educative and the show will show all of us here in Indonesia about the seed to seal of our young living essential oil, about the science.
Yes.
Itu kenapa
Yeah.
Richard Carlson PhD, seorang Executive Director untuk Research and Analytical, demikian juga Farun Koneru, Senior Director untuk Product Development, hadir Bapak Ibu semua untuk siang hari ini menjawab pertanyaan apabila Bapak Ibu ada pertanyaan terutama tentang science di Young Living. Tapi sebelum kita kepada Richard ataupun kepada Varun, mari kita akan bersama Dr. Mike Buch dulu. Kita akan jalan-jalan di The Geriang Research Institute, yaitu laboratorium milik Young Living untuk benar-benar menganalisa dan memastikan kualitas essential oil dari Young Living. Sudah siapkah semua? Semoga sudah siap, sama-sama melihat ya. Seperti apa sih analisa yang dilakukan di Young Living Essential Oil di The Geriang Research Institute. Yuk bareng-bareng sama saya, kita semua satu Indonesia, kita terbang ke Utah, Lehigh, Amerika Serikat, dan silahkan melihat tentang The Geriang Research Institute.
I'm really pleased to be able to show you a behind-the-scenes tour that most people never get to see of the D. Gary Young Research Institute. So follow me, we'll go in. So here we are in the research laboratory at the D. Gary Young Research Institute. And before I show you around the laboratory, what I wanted to do is point out the floor, believe it or not, because this laboratory is actually built on a separate foundation from the rest of the building. And the reason we did that is because we needed a floating foundation to dampen vibrations, because vibrations can actually upset some of these very sensitive instruments. So this laboratory was designed from the ground up, literally, to house our very sensitive instruments. And we're really proud of that. Come on, let me show you around. This is actually a separate room in the laboratory that is a micro distillation facility. And these are actually very small stills that mimic the stills out at the farms. The farm stills are often huge. They can be up to 18,000 liters in size. These obviously aren't that large. But what we do with these in this laboratory is bring in experimental plants from our greenhouse, and then we distill them, and we collect the oils, and here you can see some oil that we collected earlier. And then we test those oils to understand what novel plants can bring us in terms of the oils. Now let me show you how we do some of the testing. I'd like to show you one of the real workhorse instruments that we use here in the analytical laboratory. It's called a gas chromatograph, or a GC. And this is actually one of the real workhorse scientists that we have in the laboratory. This is Dr. Richard Carlson, who is our Executive Director of Research here in the D. Gary Young Research Institute. Rich, what are you working on?
I'm looking at a juniper sample that we distilled in our distillation lab, and now we're separating all the components that were in that essential oil and trying to identify each of those separate components.
So this is real Utah juniper that's native to the state here?
Correct. Correct. Gas chromatography is such a powerful technique because we use it to separate very aromatic compounds. The molecules that we smell immediately when we open an essential oil, those are what we call as volatile compounds. They're usually very small molecules, and essential oils can contain hundreds of these molecules.
And they're volatile because they evaporate. And
Correct.
if they didn't evaporate, you actually couldn't smell them, is that right?
Right, right. One of the key components of the gas chromatograph is the column. Now this is an open tube. It's wrapped around this frame so that it easily fits inside the oven. This is about 60 meters long, wrapped tightly, and on the inside of this open tube is a very special coating. And that special coating interacts with the sample as it flows through the tube, and the molecules get separated into their individual components.
So this column or tube is not much thicker than the diameter of a hair.
Correct.
But it is an open tube that things flow through constantly.
Yes, and it's a very delicate process to put that polymer inside the tube, and a lot of science and research involved in making this consistent, and so we get the same results every time when we analyze a sample.
Good. Where does the tube go? You want to open the instrument and show
Yes.
everyone?
We install the tube in a very specific manner. This square box is what we call the oven. It's a heated zone. Very precise heating parameters are used. The column is installed in what we call the inlet. The sample is placed in this section, and then it travels through the column and it exits through here into what we call the detector. This particular instrument has a flame ionization detector which measures the amount of each molecule that's present as it's separated in the column.
Okay, so why don't we take a look at the output of a typical GC run?
Okay. The compounds, these numbers along the top of these peaks, as we call them, each peak is a separate molecule, represent the time that it remained in the column. And as they travel through the column, they separate out, they come out at a certain time, and each time we see this molecule under these conditions, it's going to come out at this exact time.
So this x-axis is actually minutes. So for example, this peak came out at almost 39 minutes. We had to run the instrument that long before that particular compound made it through the column and hit the detector. Is that right?
Right. And typically we'll run these for an hour, maybe 70 minutes. It depends on the sample, and we know what we're dealing with in most cases, so we know how long to run it. In the cases that we don't know what we're dealing with, we'll make sure we run it long enough so we get everything that's in the sample coming out of the column.
So one of the great things about an instrument like this is it will separate the oil into its individual components and identify those components. It will also measure the quantity of each component so that we can assess the purity and the potency of the oil. And it will also identify any peaks in there or compounds in there that shouldn't be there. So it'll actually be a very good measure of the purity and the naturalness of an essential oil. So this is another very sensitive instrument that we use to characterize the molecules in essential oils. And this is called a Fourier Transform Infrared Spectrophotometer, or FTIR for short. So this instrument actually shines a beam of infrared light through an oil sample, and the way it works is you put a very small droplet of oil on the instrument, and there's a little hole in this plate where the infrared beam can travel. You swing this over, this is actually the infrared projector. So it shines the infrared light through the oil, and every molecule in that oil absorbs the infrared light a little bit differently. So if we scan all of the wavelengths of infrared light, we can also monitor all of the chemical bonds in the molecules in this sample. And what it gives you then is a very unique fingerprint of the chemical bonds in the oil. And this is what we're looking at here. There's what we call the fingerprint region, where different carbon and hydrogen bonds interact with the infrared light. This is a large CH3 bond. This looks like an NH bond, and over here we have an OH bond, which would be found either in water or a little bit of alcohol in the sample. So this provides a very accurate fingerprint of the molecule. And what that allows us to do is to make sure that we have the exact molecules in the oil that we like. It also allows us to measure the purity of those compounds. It's a great instrument. So now I'd like to show you two instruments that I'm really proud of. And the reason I'm so proud of these instruments is, one is they are extremely sophisticated instruments that take a lot of training to run. And because they're so sophisticated, no one else in the essential oil industry even has these instruments. So let me show you what they are. These are isotope ratio mass spectrometers, and we actually have two matching instruments. And you can see Dr. Carlson here is working on one of them. Rich, do you want to come over and talk a little bit about what these are and how they work, please?
Yeah, sure. You mentioned they're isotope ratio mass spectrometers. That's this big part down here is the mass spectrometer section. On top of it, we see something familiar, a gas chromatograph. Again, the gas chromatograph separates out the individual molecules that are in the sample, in the essential oil. And by separating them, we're able to look at each individual molecule independently of all the others. We just talked about the FTIR. That looks at all the molecules together when we do an analysis using FTIR. But using the gas chromatograph, we separate out the individual molecules, and then each molecule is compared to a standard reference molecule to make sure that it comes from a natural origin. It does this by examining the carbon in the sample versus carbon in our reference material. And because we've been doing this for many, many years, we know what that ratio should be for each sample.
What we're actually doing here is comparing different isotopes of carbon. So there's carbon 12 and carbon 13 and carbon 14. And these instruments are actually able to identify and quantify the ratio of the various isotopes of carbon, which occur naturally in our atmosphere and then get into the plants as they perform photosynthesis and take in CO2.
By looking at each of these molecules as they are separated through the gas chromatograph and comparing that isotopic abundance, we call it, we're able to understand, did this get created in a laboratory somewhere, or did it really come from nature?
And as I said, there's an isotopic ratio that's kind of fixed in the atmosphere. So if the plant takes in the isotopes from the atmosphere, the plant will have the same ratio, and then the oil from the plant will have the same ratio. If it doesn't have that matching ratio, then we know it's synthetic.
And we can even drill down and understand which part of the country, which part of the world, where did this come from based on rainfall, based on atmospheric conditions, and so forth.
That's
so
right.
it is a very powerful technique.
And extremely sensitive. So we can tell, for example, if a sample came from, let's say, Madagascar versus Mexico, based on the ratio of the isotopes that are in it. Really a great instrument, and we're really proud of it. In fact, we will be having a paper published on this very soon. We just submitted it to a journal, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So in this section of the lab, we have a suite of instruments that we call liquid chromatographs. And these are used for compounds that are not volatile, compounds that don't evaporate, so that we can't use them in a gas chromatograph. And actually down here is Dr. Chris Bowerbank. And Chris is an expert analytical chemist, expert chromatographer, and he's actually working on, I believe, some new methods to detect some synthetic compounds that could possibly occur in vanilla. Right. And Chris, if you don't mind, maybe you could talk a little bit about how the instrument works and what you're doing.
You bet. As Dr. Buch mentioned, we're working on advanced detection technologies for analyzing and detecting both natural and synthetic components of our vanilla. This is a liquid chromatograph mass spectrometer, and much like the gas chromatograph that Dr. Carlson and Dr. Buch showed you earlier, in this method, we use a liquid to push the sample through a column that looks like this. This is packed with small little beads that are coated with a polymeric material. And as the sample travels down the column, they separate into their individual components. Now this instrument here is what's called ultra high pressure liquid chromatography. As components are separated on the liquid chromatograph, they're then pushed over to the mass spectrometer detector. Now this is a single quadrupole type of mass spectrometer, and what this detector does is it actually determines the mass of the components as they exit the column. And based upon that mass, we can detect and identify what those individual components are. And as we compare those to a standard, we then can confirm whether or not those components that are coming off the column from the sample are authentic or synthetic.
And this is an instrument that we use typically to measure compounds that are not volatile, that don't evaporate, like in the gas chromatographs.
Right.
And these are particularly useful for things like vanilla that don't have a lot of volatile components, and also for vitamins. So we develop a lot of methods here to determine vitamin concentrations that we then transfer to our other laboratory in quality control that uses them to analyze samples every day.
Yep.
Thanks, Chris.
You bet.
So I wanted to show you one of the really cool attributes of these gas chromatographs. We can load up samples into little vials that have rubber tops on them. They're called septa, and place them in a carousel loader like this. And this is actually a robot. And what it does is move an arm with a needle on it that comes down, punctures the little rubber septum, and then takes a sample and injects it automatically into the instrument. So an analyst can actually load this up with all kinds of samples. I think this holds 24 samples, and walk away from it. And the instrument will run all day, and at the end of the day we can come back and look at the results. Fantastic little robot. I'll show you how it works. So now it's actually drawing the sample up into the needle, into the tubing, which will then go over to the inlet port on the GC and inject the sample. After the first sample is injected, it's timed to allow all of the components to separate through the gas chromatographic column, and after that first experiment is completed, it'll move automatically to the next sample and start again. So this is our pesticide testing laboratory. And I apologize, it's very noisy in here, and that's because the particular instruments that we use require strong vacuums. So there are vacuum pumps in here that are running all the time. But I wanted to point out the fact that this is a completely separate room from the other laboratories, and that's because we never want to take a risk of having pesticides contaminate our other samples in the other lab. So we're in a dedicated room with a different air handling system and different instruments that are used only for pesticide measurements. Again, this is a very sophisticated gas chromatograph with a mass spectrometer on it that we use to develop methods to detect very specific pesticides at very, very low levels. These days, pesticides are everywhere. They're even in the air that we breathe all the time. So we have to be very careful how we set up analytical methods to detect pesticides or potential pesticides in any oil or raw material that comes into Young Living. So here we are in the nutrition lab. Now we've transitioned from analytical research type laboratories into another type of laboratory, which is our product development laboratory. This is where we actually develop new products and make all of those great products that you love to use so much. So this is Warun Kaneru. He's the head of our product development team. And I think Warun has the most interesting job in all of Young Living because he and his team are the folks who actually develop new products, make the new products that you see every day, every year coming out of our labs. Warun, why don't you show us a little bit about what you do in here?
Sure. So after we do a lot of research on ingredients, we start procuring our ingredients to do more benchtop work. So here we have our whole library of ingredients. Once we procure the ingredients and know the research behind it, we make prototypes before we go into large scale-ups. So we have a kettle here where we can make liquids. We have a V blender where we can mix powders together in a good homogeneous mixtures before we going into the tableting and capsuling.
So Warun, over in this part of the lab, I know we have some equipment that allows us to mimic what happens on a larger scale in manufacturing. And specifically, we can make things like capsules and tablets on some of this laboratory equipment. Do you mind explaining how these
Sure.
work to some of the folks?
Sure. Once we go from the powder mixes, we take the mix and do more lab scale-ups for the press tablets, and we test them before we go into full-scale production to ensure the actives are staying intact and we have accurate formulations before going into the production.
So, I shouldn't talk with my mouth full, but every time I come into the nutrition lab, I like to sample some of the products that they're making here. And one of the things that I wanted to point out about this lab is that it's also a fully functional kitchen. So Warun's over here in the kitchen area, and I'll let him talk to you a little bit about that.
Hi. So here we have highly sophisticated 6-burner kitchen where we can create some of these food products in our labs. We have some of the most recent, your favorites, like protein bites or Wolfberry crisp bars are created in this lab. Also, vitality drops and few other products. Also, I want to point out some of our scientists. We have 3 certified food scientists, and collectively, we have over 40 years of creating natural products in this industry. And all the new and improved products you see are created by these scientists. And having this sophisticated lab really helps the scientists to thrive and be creative when they're creating new products.
This is our engineering laboratory, and this is where we work on physical devices that we sell at Young Living. So for example, this is where the diffusers are invented and tested. And you can see some of the new diffuser engines being tested here. And we have special venting systems so that we can run 100 diffusers at a time with all different oils. And it goes up into the vents and it's scrubbed before it goes out into the atmosphere. It's a great testing facility. So here we are in the personal care formulation laboratory. And this is where great scientists like Katie here develop all those wonderful personal care products that you've come to know and love. Things like all of our makeups, things like toothpaste, hair care products. And I'm going to turn it over again to Varun Koneru, who will take you through some of the specific things that we do here in this lab.
Along with the formulations, we have a lot of sophisticated instruments in our lab to test the efficacy of the products. So when we develop our skincare products, we have an instrument here called Vizia, where we have a phase scans on the optical rotation, where we can test, once the product is applied, have phase scans with different directions and have facial measurements, mostly of the physical parameters of the skin, and look at how the products, when applied, are working on them. And also we have our stability chamber where we test once we create these formulas, we test for shelf life of it in there. And I'll show you real quick how we work on those. Once we have a formula in the lab, we test it under stressed conditions to make sure it is having a full shelf life, which is a year to 2 years. And the instrument here we have is a 40 degrees C with a 75 humidity. And under those stress conditions, we look at our formulas to see how they behave under these stress conditions to know the full impact of the formula and the durability of it.
So I hope you've enjoyed your behind-the-scenes tour of the D. Gary Young Research Institute. And if you're ever in Lehi, Utah, please come in and visit us at the Global Headquarters building and take a look at our laboratories. We have a lot of it behind glass, and you can come in and do a self-guided tour anytime you'd like. As always with Young Living, everything is open to the public. We have nothing to hide, and we love showing it to you. Thanks, everyone.
Mudah-mudahan cukup bermanfaat ya ibu-ibu dan bapak di rumah. Kenapa? Saya sendiri pernah loh berkunjung ke The Gary Young Research Institute pada waktu saya berkunjung ke our global headquarters di Lehi, Utah. Tapi apa yang saya dapatkan itu jauh berbeda. Saya lebih mendapatkan banyak hal lewat tour yang di-guide oleh Dr. Mike Buch ini pada siang hari ini dibanding waktu saya ke sana sendiri. Jadi saya senang banget dan semoga ibu-ibu dan bapak-bapak semua di rumah juga merasa senang kayak saya karena kita mendapat begitu banyak hal untuk bisa mengerti tentang analisa baik secara kualitatif maupun kuantitatif tentang essential oil Young Living. Kita juga bisa mengerti gimana sih caranya Young Living untuk bisa mengembangkan produk barunya gitu ya. Nah, sebentar lagi kita akan masuk ke sesi tanya jawab. Mari kita mengundang dulu. Tadi ada juga ya di dalam video tadi, di dalam tour kita tadi, lab tour kita, ada juga Richard Carlson, PhD, Executive Director, Research and Analytical Science di Gary Young Research Institute. Kami juga mengundang Varun Koneru, Senior Director Product Development. Hi there.
Hello.
Thank you so much. I think all of our members want to say thank you to both of you because you, Richard, and your team have a very important role to make sure that our essential oil has the highest quality of essential oil ever. And you, Varun, you also have a very important role, I guess, to develop our new product, to make sure that the efficacy of our new product meet our requirement. So thank you so much for your hard work there in Utah, Lehigh, and you did all of that for us to make sure we have the best quality product of Young Living. Okay, so are you both ready for the question and answer session?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, before we go there, I just want to make sure. Richard Carlson, we do have isotope ratio mass spectrometry. The function of that analytical instrument is also to make sure that we don't have any synthetic element or synthetic component if our essential oil. Am I right, Richard?
You are correct.
Okay, so we make sure that every single product in our essential oil Young Living has no synthetic component in there.
They are authentic and natural.
Oke, jadi ibu-ibu, saya ingin menekankan apa yang tadi diceritakan oleh Dr. Buch dan Richard Carlson. Kita sekarang bisa yakin ya, bahwa ketika kami menyatakan di label kami 100% pure essential oil frankincense contohnya, ini berarti essential oil kami memang 100% pure. Karena di The Geriang Research Institute kami sudah menelitinya dan memastikan dengan ARMS tadi bahwa ini pure 100% hanya berasal dari alam. And isn't that the IRMS? We can say that we are the only young essential oil company that has that analytical instrument, Richard.
That is correct.
And we have
It's
two.
very glad to know that.
Yeah. Thank you, Varun. We have two IRMS instruments.
We have two IRMS. I also noticed, Richard, in the tour that we also have a special lab for pesticide.
That is correct.
We also use the gas chromatograph there.
We use two different instruments. We use a gas chromatograph and we use a liquid chromatograph. And we use the different instruments because in order to test for all of the pesticides that might be used in the world, we need both types of instruments.
So basically we can say that our product in essential oil or in multivitamin or any non-volatile product, it's actually we already analyzed, it's free of pesticide.
All of the products are completely safe to use as they are labeled.
Oh,
Correct.
thank you so much for that. Jadi Bapak Ibu di rumah seperti tadi di video tour, kita bisa melihat kita juga punya laboratorium untuk menguji pestisida. Which is ada gas chromatography and liquid chromatography. Jadi apakah itu produk yang volatil atau mudah menguap atau produk yang non-volatil seperti vitamin for example, kita sudah bisa memastikan semua produk yang living itu sangat aman karena sudah diteliti di laboratorium pestisida. Saya seneng banget. I'm so happy to get so many education this day. Thank you so much, Varun, and thank you so much, Richard. Now, if there is any question for the audience, is there anyone who wants to have question? Please raise your hand first. Ya, Bapak Ibu, tolong raise hand. Lalu nanti teman-teman dari kami, tim kami akan spotlight videonya. Adakah yang pertama sudah raise hand? Silahkan.
Halo Bu Lisa.
Hai Kakak Ika, apa kabar kamu?
Fine, thank you.
Ika is one of our top leader here in Indonesia. So please Kakak Ika, what do you want to say to Varun or maybe to Richard? The stage is yours.
Yeah. Hello Varun. Hello Richard. How are you?
Hello.
Good, how are you?
I hope you can hear me well, yeah?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. I feel so amazing that YL, a really, really great company that think the quality of how to test the essential oil from the design of the lab. You know, I see the floating design, floating foundation that really, really specific to be think by YL to make sure that quality of the testing will be very good. So here I would like to ask about the essential oil test. I ever visited a living warehouse in Utah, and I see so many testing that should be passed in every product of Young Living. So I would like to know how many process it total that every single bottle of essential oil uh, test to be tested. So I see in the video that there are GCMS, FTIR, spectrograph, and still IRMS too. But in totally, how many tests that should every single bottle of essential oil should be tested? Maybe you would like to explain more about this.
Okay, I think, I believe what she asked is how many different tests the essential oil products are exposed to during the entire testing process. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, that's a very good question. And that question is somewhat different depending on the type of oil. So some oils we go through and examine them by additional testing. And let's see, we have the Fourier transform test, we have specific gravity, we have refractive index, we have polarimetry, we have solubility, we have flash point, we mentioned gas chromatography, we mentioned isotope ratio mass spectrometry. Some of the oils are also tested by liquid chromatography, and some of the oils are tested by a special gas chromatography technique referred to as chiral chromatography. So overall, each essential oil is tested by about 15 different analytical tests. And they are tested multiple times during the process. We test them when they are received into our distribution center. Before they go anywhere, they are put in a quarantine area. It's locked up. No one is allowed access to it except the scientists. The scientists take some samples. They go to the laboratory, run the tests, and if it passed the tests, then it gets moved into a different area of the facility. If any single test is failed, then the sample is not accepted into our facility. And then that testing is repeated after the essential oil is put into a bottle. And each essential oil also undergoes what we call stability testing. There is, Varun mentioned the stability chamber. All of the essential oils are subjected to stability testing, as well as I think I did not mention heavy metal testing. So heavy metals are another things we test for. Needless to say, many, many tests. And one thing that is important is that it is not one single test that helps us to understand the authenticity of an essential oil, but all of the tests together help us to get information on the quality of the essential oil material.
Okay, Richard.
Oke. Ibu Ika, apakah cukup menjelaskan atau mungkin ada ingin yang ditanyakan lebih lanjut?
Yes. So Richard said that every essential oil have different analytical tests. So it is mean that like rose essential oil with frankincense essential oil has a different treatment in testing the oils. Can we say like that?
Is it quite
I'm
clear
sorry.
for you?
No.
So the question is, for example, if we are going for the test for rose essential oil, will rose essential oil going through different tests compared to frankincense essential oil, for example? Because these two oils, of course, have different characteristic, different component. That's why the question is, so every single oil in Young Living, do they go through the same quality test or a little bit different one from each other? Is that your question, Bu Ika?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Every essential oil goes through the same testing, and then there are some essential oils that get additional testing because we have identified certain measurements that will tell us more about the authenticity of those samples. And some samples, such as rose oil, it's very expensive, and as a result, people are tempted to adulterate rose oil more than they are tempted to adulterate something that is less expensive. So rose actually gets a few extra tests over a lesser expensive oil such as geranium. Frankincense and rose actually get the same number of tests.
Okay. Okay, clear. Thank you, Richard.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Ika. So that's quite interesting, actually, Richard. When you say about the analytical, so we will do the test to the bulk of essential oil, and after we put them in the bottle, we will do another test after we bottling them.
Right.
And of course, when the samples is failed, I mean the test is failed for some samples, we are not using that samples.
No, no.
Wow. Even though, for example, we have the harvest of lavender this year for, I don't know, hundreds of tons lavender from our farm. Just for example, the sample of that lavender harvest is not past our test. So we are not using that sample, or we are not using all of the harvest?
We don't use that sample.
Oh.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Oke, terima kasih. Thank you. Jadi ibu-ibu mendengar sendiri ya, kurang lebih ada 15 tes yang berbeda untuk setiap essential oil. Namun mungkin ada beberapa essential oil yang memiliki tes lanjutan, contohnya rose, karena rose itu di lapangan memiliki praktek adulterated rose, agak diubah gitu ya. Jadinya nanti di lapangan ada rose yang tidak murni, rose KW gitu ya. Tapi kalau dengan mata telanjang seperti kita mungkin nggak tahu, it's not the pure rose, it's all the adulterated rose. We don't know that. But through our analytical test in the Gary Young Research Institute, we can be sure that our rose is the purest and the highest quality of essential oil, gitu ya. Cukup menarik bahasan kita di siang hari ini tentang kualitas essential oil yang living. Ada lagi kah yang ingin bertanya? Ada? Hai, selamat siang, dengan Bapak siapa? Silakan, Pak.
Halo Bu Lisa. Bu Lisa bisa dengar?
Bisa. Saya bisa mendengar. Mungkin Bapak memperkenalkan diri dulu, kemudian saya persilahkan ada yang ingin ditanyakan.
Hi, I'm Yamin. Actually, I'm a chemical engineer, so I'm quite familiar with the lab facility. I'm going to ask one question only. I understand that Young Living has a very stringent quality control and quality assurance policy, such as the seed to seal commitment. But considering that all the products came from nature, how do the research team cooperate with the plantation team to ensure that minor disturbance will be found since the early stage of cultivation, so that you can maximize the test result after the product is distilled, so that you can have less off-spec products? That's my question.
Oke, terima kasih Pak.
Okay, excellent question. When we do work with natural products, every harvest is different. And so rather than focus on very strict, well, they are strict guidelines, but each component is evaluated within a certain range. And the molecules in the essential oils need to fall within a specific range. So, for example, we might say lavender, the linalool concentration should be between 25% and 27%. And if it doesn't fall within that ratio, then it's not accepted. And that might be different from year to year. However, our experience has shown that it's more different based on the geographical location of the material. And so by getting lavender essential oil from our farm in Utah and our farm in France, those ratios are fairly consistent from year to year. We do get some variation. They are not 10-20% range. They're more on the order of 3 to 7%, depending on the type of rain that we get and the heat versus the cold and different temperatures. So natural products, there's always variation. Dr. Buch talked about the distillation laboratory that we have at the D. Gary Young Research Institute. And by getting samples and distilling there, we're able to create our own standard reference materials that we can then use to compare the samples that we get from our farms.
Oke, Pak, apakah cukup menjawab?
So mungkin tambahin sedikit ya Mbak Lisa ya. So are you saying that I understand that since this is a natural product, so it all depends on the weather, on the climate, on the type of soil, on the temperature, everything. So, I mean, does the research team in the Garyang Research Institute do something on the, I mean, work together with the agronomists so that in different type of weather, they can know what to do so that at the end of the day, when to your lab, when you do this analysis, then we can say that you can guarantee that the most of the tests can pass through your spec. Maybe, for example, in winter, then the agronomist should do something to the crops so that it will ensure that the desired range of concentration of that molecules is there when you do the test at the final product.
Okay. Yes, we do work with agronomists at the farm. We don't understand all of the variables and how they create the changes in the essential oils. What we're doing at this point, and we have for about the past 4 or 5 years, is to collect the data on water content, on the temperature and so forth, and see how that affects the essential oil production, as well as the constituents in the essential oil. We hope to get to the point where we can understand this to the extent that we can change certain practices on the farm to improve the essential oil yield. Right now, we don't do any proactive measures with the plants. We simply make sure that they're free of weeds and that they get plenty of water and sunshine and bees.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Richard.
Okay.
Ada
Thank you,
lagi ingin
Richard.
ditanyakan
Ada
atau
lagi
sudah
yang
cukup
ingin
jelas?
ditanyakan atau sudah cukup
Cukup, Mbak
jelas?
Lisa. Cukup. Thank you ya.
Terima kasih loh Pak untuk pertanyaannya.
Terima kasih loh Pak untuk pertanyaannya.
So it's quite interesting actually. Then we can go to the next question. Is there any more questions? Okay, there is. Are you ready, Richard and Farun?
Yep.
We are ready.
Oke.
Oh,
Kak, apa kabar siang hari ini?
Yang Bu Lisa, cantik banget ya Bu Lisa ya.
Cus.
Good evening, Richard and Farun. I have a question about the third-party testing. We understand that Young Living is very meticulous on the testing, and we also understand that you do have a third-party testing, if I'm not wrong. And can you tell us more about the third-party testing? I mean, who is the lab that you're using, and what is the guarantee that you do not have any conflict of interest between the lab and Young Living? Because we understand that there is another essential oil producer that claiming they have a third-party testing, but in the end they have a conflict of interest. So, can you please elaborate more on that?
Wow, very interesting question.
I'm happy to evaluate. Yeah. I'm happy to elaborate on that. We use third-party testing as a tool to confirm the things that we're doing in our laboratory so that we make sure that we don't make mistakes as we're going through our analysis procedures. Truly, the companies that rely on third-party testing, in my opinion, they do not understand their own products. We have spent a lot of money building up a wonderful laboratory, and we have well-trained scientists, and we know how to test our own product. Most of the third-party labs do not know how to test essential oils. Most of them make most of their money off of testing environmental samples such as soils and water or food, and they do not have expertise in essential oils. There is some laboratories that we have worked with in France. CNRS is one of the laboratories. These laboratories are affiliated with the French government, and they're staffed with scientists that will not compromise their scientific integrity. That's how we avoid conflict of interest. Another way is to use multiple laboratory when we do third-party testing. For example, there are some different ways to measure isotope ratio. We can do carbon-14, we can do carbon-12, carbon-13, and by looking at different measurements from multiple laboratories, we can determine our own measurement.
Okay, quite interesting the question, Ibu Anggia. So one of the things that we do, we use multiple third lab party just to make sure we don't have conflict of interest because we have multiple third lab parties. That's so,
Right.
Richard.
Yes, yes.
Ibu Anggia, sudah cukup menjawabkah bahwa salah satu hal yang dilakukan tadi bekerja sama dengan beberapa third party untuk menghindari konflik of interest, dan kita juga sudah sangat terlatih memiliki saintis yang sangat terlatih untuk meneliti sampel-sampel dari essential oil kita. Ibu Anggia cukup menjawab atau ada yang ingin ditambahkan? Ibu Anggia cukup menjawab atau ada yang ingin ditambah? Oh, sepertinya Ibu Anggia.
Oh, sudah cukup. Memuaskan sekali ya. Kita tahu.
Sepertinya Ibu Anggia. Oh, sudah cukup. Oh, enggak apa-apa.
Aku nge-lag kayaknya, Bu.
Apa yang mau dibicarakan, Bu Anggia? Silakan.
Oh, enggak. Karena kan kita sering dengar bahwa third party testing lab yang dipakai itu berhubungan sama government gitu ya, dan ternyata emang bener ya berhubungannya sama French, affiliated sama French government. So interesting. Thank you, Bu. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Haru.
Jadi memang third party berhubungan dengan government, and we use different or multiple third lab party to make sure we don't make mistakes. So our result is very objective. Is that what you mean, right, Richard?
Yes. Yes.
Oke, thank you so much. Jadi hasil kita selalu objektif karena kita tidak hanya punya laboratorium sendiri, teman-teman di rumah, tapi kita juga mengirimkan kita juga membuat dan menganalisa dan melakukan tes di lab di luar yang living yang berhubungan dengan government, dan bahkan bukan hanya satu, multiple. Jadi kita akan memastikan hasil lab kita atau hasil tes kita itu objektif. Terima kasih pertanyaannya Ibu Anggia. Masih ada pertanyaan kah dari teman-teman di rumah? Rame kayaknya ya. So many questions I guess. Please be ready Varun and Richard because so many questions coming from our members. Hai.
Halo, siang Bu Lisa. Good evening Richard and Varun.
Silakan
Good evening.
Bu, perkenalkan diri sebentar, lalu silakan. The stage is yours, Bu.
Nama aku Anas. Ya, my name is Anas. Ya, I want to ask two questions. Maybe to Varun. Ya, number one, which product needs the most attention in your kitchen? Maybe related with the process ya.
Benar.
And number two, the question is, our essential oil contain a part of a plant. Yeah, for example, orange. From what I know, orange extract from the orange peel. Yeah. My question is, if we eat the orange peel, is it the same if we ingest the orange essential oil? That question too. Thank you.
Okay. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay. So the number one question is, what is the best product in the kitchen, right?
That needs the most attention for the process.
Oh, okay. That's a very good question. There are a lot of products that needs a lot of attention for the process. One of it is the Thieves Household Cleaner. It is a concentrated liquid, but it is a multi-purpose cleaner where you can use it for different purposes. So for the overall process of creation is complex, but we test for different surfaces and materials to use at different concentrations. So I would think that's one of the complex product in the process. And it is a really authentic product. And you can use it in a different concentrations for different surfaces. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and hopefully Tips household product will soon be in Indonesia ya Pak, Bu.
See, I was telling Liza, I don't know all the products.
Bu, Ibu tadi bertanya apakah dengan demikian berbeda apabila kita meminum atau mengingest essential oil orange
dengan kalau kita makan when we eat the orange peel itself.
Oh, oke. Untuk hal ini, boleh nggak Ibu, mungkin ada pertanyaan lain, karena kan memang essential oil yang living kita tidak memaksudkan untuk diminum ya, Jadi,
atau yang mungkin dicium atau di aroma gitu, Bu. Misalnya kita mencium kulit jeruk dengan mencium essential oil. Apakah is it the same or not?
Kelasnya kondak nih pasti nih. Ini pasti rajin kelas kondak. Yes. So the question is, because we know the lemon or orange essential oil, we distill it from the kulit, from the peel of the fruit, right? So, will it be different if we smell the peel of the fruit and if we smell the aroma from the essential oil? Will it be different?
Varun, do you want me to answer that question?
Rich, you want to take it? Yeah.
Certainly. It will be slightly different because we're talking about different amounts of the essential oil. Yes, the essential oil glands in a citrus fruit sit right beneath, between the peel and the white part. We call pith in English. That is where the glands that produce the essential oil are in citrus plants, citrus fruits. The oil is extracted by pressing that peel, and when you smell the essential oil in a bottle, it's hundreds of oranges or lemons or lime. And so you have a much stronger aroma than a orange or a lemon or a lime. But it's the same essential oil. And if you enjoy cooking and you take a zester and you zest an orange or a lime, you're putting the essential oil into your recipe when you do that.
With the zest ya.
Yes.
Oke, Bu, apakah cukup menjawab, Bu?
Cukup, Bu Lisa. Thank you. Thank you very much, Richard and Farun.
Untuk menekankan ibu-ibu dan teman-teman di rumah, contohnya lemon essential oil. Ini diambil from 75 lemon, the peel of lemon fruit. So of course it's very much different ketika teman-teman di rumah hanya mungkin mencium zest atau aroma dari kulit buah lemon dibandingkan dengan mencium dari satu botol essential oil ini, karena satu botol essential oil ini mengandung 75 lemon, 75 dari kulit buah lemon tadi. Jadi tentunya sangat berbeda kalau kita mencium dari buahnya atau dengan essential oil. 75 loh cuma jadi 15 ml. Oke, semakin menarik nih kayaknya. Siang hari ini kita berdiskusi. Ada lagi pertanyaan? Atau hari ini kita berdiskusi gimana teman-teman di rumah? Kita punya challenge loh. Oh, ada satu lagi. Farun and Richard, so sorry to disturbing your sleeping quality time. We have so many questions here.
You're happy to help.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Perkenalkan diri.
Hello, thank you for having me, Ibu. I'm already waiting from the first Zoom until the end of the Zoom, and I already chosen and appreciated for choosing me. Actually, I'm as an accountant, not a scientist, but I have one big question from myself, and I would like you to answer my question. What the big gaps from rose essential oil with another essential oil? So the rose essential oil needs more attention to. I'm sorry, can you hear me, Ibu?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, thank you. So what the big gap from rose essential oil and from the other essential oils? So for 5 million essential oil is so expensive than the others. Can you describe to me, is it from the rare or yep. Thank you.
Okay. Farun and maybe Richard, can you hear clearly because I cannot?
I'm sorry, I could not hear the question.
Sorry, Ibu, boleh nggak diulang kembali kalau saya tidak salah dengar? Karena di sini putus-putus, sinyalnya Ibu mungkin agak terganggu, tapi mungkin
Can you hear me?
Ibu yang dipertanyakan adalah
so can you describe what the big difference, what the big gaps between rose essential oil and maybe for the jasmine essential oil? when they are created, and what's the difference about the final price? Is it there's a special treatment why they are so expensive from the other essential oil? Thank you.
Oke, Bu,
Thank you.
bukankah pertanyaannya apa perbedaan antara rose essential oil dengan essential oil lainnya? Kenapa sih essential oil rose lebih mahal?
Essential oil. Is it about the treatment or about the rare of the source, or maybe about the anything about? Thank you.
Okay. Richard, can you
I'm
hear me
sorry,
clearly? So the
my
question
quality
is
of
about
internet.
rose essential oil. What is the difference between rose essential oil and the other essential oil? What makes our rose essential oils much more expensive than the other essential oil?
Yes.
Is it the treatment? Is it the analytical? Or is there anything else that makes it so much different?
Yeah, so curious about it. Thank you.
Thank you for repeating the question. The difference is that rose contains very small amount of oil. And it takes many, many rose petals. It takes many rose petals to make a drop of oil. Like in a 5 ml bottle of oil, we have almost 250,000 rose petals. That's the reason rose is so expensive.
Oke. Oh, sudah cukup jelaskah, Bu, bahwa
Or
memang
another treatment, Ibu, maybe another treatment, so maybe the rose can be so expensive than the others essential oil, maybe from jasmine or other like lavender, maybe.
The treatment is very similar. It's steam distilled.
So it just between the source from the essential oil come from, right?
So basically it's because of the raw material.
Yeah, it's just that there's not very much oil. Yeah, there's not very much oil in a rose petal.
I see.
Cukup jelas
Thank
ya,
you, Ibu. Yeah, I'm sorry for the bad quality of my internet.
Terima kasih. Jadi teman-teman yang di rumah mungkin tadi sinyalnya agak terganggu. Jadi kenapa sih rose essential oil itu lebih mahal mungkin dibandingkan dengan essential oil lainnya? Karena untuk mendapatkan 5 ml, ini bukan rose, tapi untuk memberi gambaran 5 ml rose essential oil ini dibutuhkan sekitar 10-12 kilo rose petals. Bayangin ya, 10 kilo rose petals itu banyak sekali. Coba dibandingkan dengan lemon yang hanya membutuhkan 75 buah lemon untuk bisa mendapatkan lemon essential oil 5 ml. Jadi memang berdasarkan bahan bakunya yang memang sangat banyak dibutuhkan untuk menghasilkan 5 ml rose, karena di dalam rose petal itu tidak terlalu banyak kandungan essential oilnya. Makanya dibutuhkan banyak sekali rose petal 10-12 kilogram to get 5 ml of rose essential oil only. That's what makes it so very, very expensive, because of the raw material or because we need more plant for that. So that's very interesting. Yes. Before we go to another question, Richard and Farun, can we announce the challenge here, because we have a very interesting challenge for this session. Oke, jadi teman-teman di rumah siap-siap ya, karena kita punya challenge loh untuk hari ini. Challenge-nya menarik sekali, karena hadiahnya adalah, tada! Kita punya Physics Essential Oil, ada 3 botol untuk 3 orang pemenang challenge hari ini. Ya, ada 3 botol Physics Essential Oil. Challenge-nya apa sih? Yuk, silahkan dong teman-teman tim yang living diperlihatkan challenge-nya apa di siang hari ini. Yes, jadi kita challenge-nya lewat Instagram. Post di feeds Anda 3 hal paling menarik dari sesi Dr. Mike Buch siang hari ini tentang laboratory tour. Lalu teman-teman silahkan tag YLID_education. Sekalian sponsor, kalau belum follow, choose follow YLID_education ya. Tinggal DM nama dan member ID untuk bisa di-approve sama tim kita untuk YLID_education. Tag juga yang living_Indonesia. Maksimum kami hitung hanya hingga Kamis 25 Februari 2021 jam 23.59. Maka tersedia 3 botol Physics Vegetable Oil Complex untuk 3 pemenang. Jangan lupa ya, cuma 3 doang hal paling menarik yang teman-teman dapetin di sesi siang hari ini. Ya, 3 botol Physics Essential Oil dari Young Living. 3 botol Physics Vegetable Oil Complex. Nah, selain itu teman-teman semua, kita akan mengumumkan langsung siapa sih pemenang challenge minggu lalu dalam sesi David Little gitu ya. Kita kemudian akan mengumumkan sebentar siapa pemenangnya. Silahkan teman-teman dari Young Living ditampilkan siapa pemenangnya. Nah, jadi teman-teman ini mempost di IG feeds-nya 3 hal paling menarik dari sesi David Little. Selamat kepada Noviana, Yunoia Oils, dan wonderoils.id. Selamat ya teman-teman mendapatkan masing-masing 1 botol Peppermint Essential Oils. Saya jadi pengen ikut challenge deh kalau begini. Kalau menang Essential Oil Peppermint kemarin, menang lagi Physics, kayaknya semua harus ikut challenge-nya ya. Seru banget nih challenge-nya. Yuk, oke, sekarang kita lanjut ya. Tadi udah banyak banget yang kita tahu tentang analisa dan kualitas dari essential oil yang living. Masih ada pertanyaan kah teman-teman? Aduh, kenapa masih ada ya? Ternyata menarik sekali loh sesinya. Yuk, silakan siapa lagi yang mau bertanya? Kami tampilkan di layar sekarang. Hai, Ibu cantik. Silakan. Kamu mau bertanya apa dan silakan perkenalkan dirimu.
Hello, my name is Citra, but I will ask the question with bahasa ya.
Boleh dong.
Soalnya nggak terlalu lancar bahasa Inggrisnya. Jadi saya mau nanya ke Mr. Farul. Ada 3 pertanyaan. Apa produk terbaik yang pernah Anda buat selama di Young Living? Gitu. Dari penjualannya, dari sampai ke kepuasan Anda untuk membuatnya itu loh, gitu, developingnya. Terus yang kedua,
Bu, itu pertanyaannya kalau ditanya saya bingung loh jawabnya apa. Kenapa ditanya itu ya?
Soalnya kan pasti ada kesayangannya, maksudnya dari mulai menjalani ngerjain sampai itu kan ada passionnya lah gitu kan. Gitu. Terus yang kedua, biasanya ada ide tercetus itu tuh biasanya berasal dari mana? Apa dari Mr. Farun sendiri, atau dari tim, atau dari dari yang lainnya gitu. Terus melalui proses apakah gitu sampai ke developingnya itu kayak gimana gitu. Terus yang ketiga, bisakah Anda menyebutkan produk yang membutuhkan waktu paling lama dan paling sebentar dalam developing sampai ke pemasarannya itu? Udah aja.
Sorry Bu, pertanyaan ketiga gimana? Saya sambil catat. Pertanyaan ketiga boleh diulang?
Bisakah Anda menyebutkan produk apa yang Anda developing yang membutuhkan waktu paling lama dan yang paling sebentar dalam developing sampai ke pemasarannya, sampai ke persetujuan dan harus dipasarkan gitu loh.
Oke, terima kasih Ibu. Saya tanyakan dulu ya. So actually, this beautiful lady asked 3 questions, especially for Farul. If
Okay.
I were you, I don't want to answer this because it's my favorite product is everything. So the first question is, what is your the best product that you have ever developed during your time in Young Living? So what is your favorite product, or you think the best product development you've ever did in Young Living? Maybe you can ask we can answer one by one.
So first question is, what is my best product I ever developed at Young Living? What are the other questions?
Yes, the best product that you've ever developed here.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Chitra, that's a very good question. And it's so hard to pick because we were counting. I joined Young Living in 2014. And with Dr. Buch joining, we were counting how many products we developed. And there are over 180 products or SKUs that we developed within the last 5 years. And every product is special because we really take utmost care by picking each ingredient, knowing the chemistry, efficacy, and also the safety for each ingredient. And once we pick the ingredients, like we showed, we go into our labs, create benchtop samples, test it, go into pilot scale production, and test it again, and then do third-party claim efficacy testings as needed to support claims and also proving the efficacy of the product. So, like I said, there's so many products, but for my heart favorite, and I think my first product I worked with Dr. Buch is Agilis. I don't know if it is in Indonesia yet, but it is a joint health supplement that
Thank you, Farun. Ibu cukup jelaskah bahwa sebenarnya Farun mencintai semua produk yang beliau develop gitu ya? Karena setiap produk memiliki spesialnya masing-masing, punya tes yang berbeda juga cara mendevelopnya gitu ya. Tapi di antara semua yang beliau develop, yang paling menarik adalah Agilis. Agilis itu suplemen yang mungkin memang belum ada di Indonesia, jadi saya tidak bahas terlalu banyak. Yang jelas Agilis itu termasuk dalam suplemen. Lalu beliau juga suka sekali sunscreen kita, SPF 50 kita, yang saya totally setuju. I think that's the best sunscreen product in the market because I use it every single day. Setuju nggak Bu? Itu the best sunscreen product in the market. Setuju ya? Okay. So the second question, Farun. When you get the idea to develop some product, where do you get the idea from? Is it from your wife, from your children, or maybe you have to dream the idea? Or where do you get the idea from where you want to develop some products? And then maybe what is the phase or what is the process until you can form them from ideas into developing the product? Please, Farun.
That's a great question, Chitra. And again, that's the second best question I had today. Yes, my wife when she has an idea, share with me, and we do work, take it to Dr. Buch and see if that's an interesting idea. But ideas come from everywhere. It's just not me, or it's just not Dr. Carlson, or it's just not Dr. Buch. We have highly sophisticated scientists, and together in both of our departments, we have over 120 years experience combined with all the scientists. So ideas come from various scientists. We do have like an ideation meeting every 3 months where scientists can express their ideas that they want to explore. At the same time, there is an email called product development at youngliving.com where members share ideas. Anyone in the company who has an idea shares ideas because we pool all the ideas, and then on a quarterly basis, every 3 months, we evaluate all the ideas that we received or that the scientists provided, evaluate within our brand management team, marketing, with Dr. Buch to see what makes sense in the next 12 months, for the next 24 months, and next 36 months. So we try to build a pipeline because products with the rigorous seed to sale standard that we follow, products take a time to develop. So what we try to do is build it for next 3 years, a pipeline where we can have scientists start working on them, testing them, and ensure we are giving you the best product on the market.
Semoga cukup jelas ya Bu Citra bahwa idenya datang dari banyak dari banyak tempat gitu ya. Jadi idenya bisa datang dari brand management team, bisa datang dari para saintis yang melakukan riset, yang melakukan meeting setiap 3 bulan sekali. But then you mention one thing that is very interesting. Is there email or what? Is it from staff? Ideas from staff? From employee, we can
staff,
send email.
members, anyone from anywhere in the world can send ideas. Product development at youngliving.com.
Product development at youngliving.com. Dicatat ya Bu Citra dan teman-teman, product development at youngliving.com. We can send some ideas, so you can get so many ideas from members. From staff, first from staff, please, I will send you an email for that, for one good product development, and also from members. All of us in Young Living is a family. That's what we want to say. So you as a members boleh product development at youngliving.com untuk memberikan beberapa ide untuk produk development. Thank you, Varun. Thank you, Bu Citra. And one more thing dari Bu Citra is what is there any specific product or one or two product that has the longest process in development or the shortest process in development? Maybe the longest one. What is the product that has longest process in product development? And the other one is the other product that has the shortest process in product development.
It goes by categories. Like our sunscreen does take longest process because in the States, in US, it is categorized as an over-the-counter drug. So while we are working on it, we have to ensure it meets FDA monograph and also test for various efficacy testing like SPF testing itself, proving it is SPF 50, and also proving it is, we call out for water resistance at 80 minutes. So we do test for under a pool, saying when you apply sunscreen, sit in a pool for 80 minutes, it is still being intact. So there are various tests required by FDA to show the efficacy of the product. So over-the-counter drugs are complex, and also our Bloom skincare line took us almost 24 months because it is a high functional skincare product line. And we have almost 4 to 5 different human clinicals done on the product to ensure it is repeat insult patch testing to ensure it is safe for sensitive skin. And we also did the VCA testing that I showed in our personal care lab with our Bloom skincare products. So depending on the products, like personal care and also OTC takes the longest time. And also for nutrition, where we have to test stability to ensure it is meeting the shelf life of what we're promising on the product. Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, if we find a single essential oil, that's easy to bring or quicker to bring to the market once we test from our sourcing to ensure it meets our higher standards, and then we manufacture in our Spanish Fork facility and we bottle it there.
Thank you, Farun.
Yes, I agree. The single essential oils are probably the shortest to the market.
Oke, jadi essential oil single.
Citra, all great questions. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Paling cepat ya. Salah satu yang paling lama sunscreen tadi ya.
Nggak kedengeran, Bu. Nggak kedengeran.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now, Farun and Richard and Ibu Citra?
Dengar, Bu.
Oke, terima kasih sudah cukup jelas ya. Essential oil single salah satu yang paling short time dan kemudian tadi salah satunya ada yang paling lama dalam proses development. Terima kasih Ibu Citra sudah cukup jelas ya.
Terima kasih. Jelas.
Bye. Okay, thank you for the answer, Farun and also Richard. Is there any more question, guys? You know, there are more question loh. Be ready ya. Please. Next question coming from. Hi.
Hi, hello.
Hello.
Hi, Richard and Barun. Thank
Hello.
you, Ibu Lisa. Hello.
Silakan, Bu.
Okay. Yes, my name is Dianisa. Thank you for the chance. So actually, I have two questions. So the first one, I really like to ask because you guys are the scientists behind the labs for us, right? So we ever heard about the statement that says essential oils need 22 seconds for the molecules to reach the brain and then 2 seconds to be found in the bloodstream, and 20 minutes to affect every cell in the body. So if we hear about this statement, it sounds scientific. It sounds scientific, but is it really scientific for the scientists behind for us? So we really want to know because we really hear about these statements a lot. And then the second one is about the diffusers. So our diffusers are made by special plastic materials, I believe. So can you explain, maybe give us a little bit of explanation about what makes the plastic materials in Young Living diffusers are different from maybe other plastic diffusers we can find? Maybe that's all.
Okay.
Yes,
I think
thank you.
I will attempt to answer the first question and let Varun answer the second question.
Yep.
Every person is different. The way our olfactory system works is we have special cells within our nose that when we're exposed to an aroma, it sends signals to our brain. And that signal tells us what we perceive the smell to be. And for every person, that time is going to be slightly different. Some people are unable to detect aromas at all. They have no sense of smell. So the time that it takes for our brain to recognize an aroma is very quick in most people. And it's actually less than 2 seconds. It's almost instantaneously the way that nerves fire and they respond to outside stimuli. Millisecond time frame for nerve signals to respond. And when we put essential oil on our skin, again, it depends on the person, it depends on the oil, and each time will be very different.
Thank you so much, Richard. Ibu, semoga cukup menjawab ya bahwa setiap orang mempunyai hasil yang akan berbeda-beda gitu ya, baik dari olfactory burp atau tergantung juga kepada kondisi kulitnya ketika pengaplikasian secara topikal.
Okay.
Next question boleh Bu?
Yes, silahkan.
Farun, please for the next question.
So, great question on the diffuse. Our diffusers do go through a lot of rigorous testing, and to identify that we are not using cheap plastics, we do various kinds of testings. And first one is we test with 3 or 4 different essential oils, highly concentrated essential oils like our thieves or different lime or lemon essential oil with different cycles for 180 to 270 hours to ensure that their repeated cycles are meeting with our time frame and it's not leaching or the plastic is not it's not corrosive or it's not corroding. And our engineer who develops or works on the diffusers also do drop testing. So he drops it from 30 feet height onto, 6 to 7 feet height onto the concrete and then 10 to 15 height onto the carpet, and then test it again for those 180 to 270 hour cycles to see with mechanical stress put on the diffusers along with the chemical stress with the oils, it's not leaking. So each diffuser goes through various cycles of testing before it's even being approved to go into production. That's how we ensure our plastics are like area where our wood or different materials are at highest quality.
Oke, Ibu apakah cukup jelas bahwa diffuser kita melewati berbagai macam testing sebenarnya?
So all of them are the best and the highest quality for each plastic or each wood that is used for the diffusers. Yeah. All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your answers.
Terima kasih juga Ibu untuk pertanyaannya yang sangat menarik. Thank you Farun, thank you Richard. Ada lagi kan pertanyaannya yang datang? Ada lagi. Silahkan. Dengan siapakah berikutnya penanya? Next question. Get ready guys.
Ready.
Hai, selamat siang.
Hai, Bu. Hai, Farm.
Kamu lagi di mana, Bu?
Lagi di kantor.
Hai, sama dong kita. Sayangnya kita nggak lagi di lab ya. Coba kita ada di Geriang Research Institute. Yuk kita virtual aja, silahkan Bu.
Hi Farouk and Richard, how are you?
We are very well.
How are you?
So I want to ask, as you said before that, not only the essential or all the cosmetic, you do also testing the diffuser, right?
Right.
But as a scientist on Young Living, what makes you think our Young Living diffuser different from the others?
Our diffusers, that's what you're asking, right?
Yeah.
Rich, I'm going to take the question.
Very good.
So, like I said, the testing is what differentiates us to ensure we are testing at different phases. So once we start with a more, so our engineer goes with a 3D design, first designing like AutoCAD, and then once he designs it, we work with our manufacturers to create molds to create the diffuser design. And once they create, they send 20 to 30 prototypes to us for testing. And like I said, we go through that 180 to 270 hour testing cycles continuously with high potent oils like lemon, thieves, different essential oils that we know are highly potent and that could affect the plastics. So we test with the high potent oils. And then once the 20 or 30 prototypes we got were approved, if they're rejected, then we roadmap saying it's leaking at some place and they need to fix and they need to use different material if we see leaking. And then once they go back, they start production, but once they start production, they create only 100 diffusers and again ship it back to us, where we test it again, both for chemical and like putting essential oils in it and running through cycles, and also for mechanical stress where, let's say if someone drops our diffuser right on a concrete pad, we want to ensure that it's is durable and it's not breaking easily. So we do a lot of break testing that we put it in the package and drop it onto the floors for multiple times to ensure with the mechanical stress and also with essential oil diffusing that it's not leaking or corrosing or it's not leaching out. So we did test some of the, sometimes when we get from our vendors, we do test products on the market, and I can tell ours is most rigorous and also one of the best quality out there for diffusers.
Thank you, Farun. So just to make
I
sure,
would
after, please, Richard.
I would also like to add that we have mechanical engineers that design diffusers within Young Living, whereas a lot of other companies will simply buy a diffuser that is already available, and it's almost like buying something from the grocery store, whereas Young Living works to design our own diffusers and design durability and quality into the product.
So just to make sure, Farun, after we do the 3D design, we go to the manufacturer and then they will do the prototype for us to retest the prototype using some potent essential oil like lemon or thieves, right? So we make sure it won't evac the material we use for the diffuser, and then we make sure it's not leaking. After they start production, they don't do mass production. First, they produce like 100 diffuser maybe. So they come back to us. We retest again. We make sure they're about the mechanical stress, about the leaking and everything. When we sure it's the requirement meet our requirement, the quality meets our requirement, then the manufacturer will do the mass production.
Right, right.
And we have internal mechanical engineer to design our diffuser, right? So it's not like the developer, what you can say, the vendor. It's not like the vendor give us, this is the design, this is the other option, this is the other option, another option. It's not that. We design by ourselves, by our mechanical engineer. So we know for sure our design meet our essential oil quality and as per our requirement.
And Lisa, the beautiful diffuser you have over there is designed by our mechanical engineer, and we have a design patent in US saying that's our design and no one can copy from that.
Wow, cukup jelas kah ya Bu ya? Jadi teman-teman, untuk mendapatkan sebuah diffuser itu perjalanannya panjang loh. Pertama, kita memiliki mechanical engineer sendiri untuk membuat 3D desainnya. Jadi bukan vendor menyodorkan, kamu mau yang mana, A, B, C? Nggak begitu ya teman-teman. Ternyata diffuser kita didesain sendiri oleh mechanical engineer kita. Baru kita berikan desain 3D-nya ke manufacturer. Lalu mereka akan kembali ke kita dengan prototype dulu, karena prototype tadi akan kita uji dengan beberapa essential oil yang cukup poten seperti lemon, seperti thieves gitu ya. Kita lihat efeknya apakah leaking atau tidak, ada kebocoran nggak, mechanical stress-nya ada nggak. Itu baru prototype ya. Baru kita kasih ke manufacturer, oke, dan manufacturer tidak langsung produksi loh. Mereka cuma produksi sekitar 100 diffuser dulu. Lalu dikembalikan lagi ke Young Living untuk Young Living tes semuanya lagi. Ketika kita sudah cukup yakin dengan hasil tes kita dan kualitasnya sesuai dengan requirement Young Living, baru manufacturer-nya akan memproduksi diffuser sesuai dengan requirement kita. So I think that's very obvious. Our diffuser is the best diffuser in the market. Setuju nggak Bu? Setuju ya. Thank you for the answer, Farun. Thank you for the answer, Richard. Makasih ya, Bu, pertanyaannya ya. Sip. Oh,
My
Farun
pleasure.
and Richard, there is one more question. Is it still okay for you?
Still okay, yes.
Yep.
It seems that you need to have 100 questions from our members, but no, we only have one more. Siapakah berikutnya? Silahkan. Hai, Bupi. Udah lama
Thank
gak
you for the
ketemu,
time.
Bupi.
Thank you, Mbak Belis. Good evening, Dr. Richard,
Silakan,
as well
Bu.
as Varun. Thank you for flashback my silver retreat 2 years ago. I miss Utah so much. Thanks to
Sorry,
Thanks to
Bupi,
both of
sebentar ya.
you and
Kayaknya
your
barusan
team.
Bupi nggak kedengeran.
Yeah, but then I have a suggestion that I've been waiting a product a product that I really needs, as well as I guess men and women they waiting for. What is it? Yeah, what it is a hair color without synthetic. Yeah, since I've been using since 2018, and I've been using from my toes to my head, all young living, and my hair is getting gray. I'm turning 50 years old. Okay, and I feel so guilty
don't
when
look
I
like
put
50.
my hair.
I was gonna say you look so good for 50.
And I've been using even though a natural hair dye, but I don't believe other brands instead of Young Living. So I keep praying that maybe one day Young Living can make a hair color without synthetic. And
Bupi, terima kasih banyak ya pertanyaannya. The first one, hair coloran. Please, Farun.
Yes, please.
Thanks for the suggestion. It's a tough one, but yeah, we'll look into that. Thank you for the suggestion, Pauline.
Thank
you. The other question is about Copaiba, right, Bupi?
Yes. Copaiba.
Yes, Copaiba
Please, Richard.
Is one of the oil, is an oil that is very high in a compound called beta-caryophyllene. And beta-caryophyllene is known to interact with certain receptors to help promote relaxation and feelings of relaxation, and therefore it would be good to use at the end of a raindrop technique.
Okay, actually,
So
Richard,
Copaiba is
yang
one
Richard
of
katakan adalah bahwa Copaiba, Bupi setuju ya, memang memiliki kandungan beta karyofilen. Sehingga memang baik sekali ketika kita mungkin selesai misalnya baru selesai olahraga, karena memang jadinya lebih relaxing sih. Jadi lebih relax, jadi lebih nyaman ya karena kita lebih relax. Itu jawabannya. Semoga cukup menjawab ya, Bupi ya.
Tapi can I ask something, Dr. Richard? But it's not a property of magnifier oil, right? So copaiba is not one of the property for magnifier oil, right? Magnifying.
One of the components of that blend. I'm sorry, magnify your purpose.
Yeah, what I mean, because I heard they said if you using like for example, after you using frankincense and then you use copaiba, I heard that it make the works of the frankincense multiplying of what frankincense doing without copaiba. If with copaiba, it's like
Okay.
making 3 times. Is that correct?
So only to enhance the
Thank
other
you.
oil that we used before.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Now I think I understand the question. Every person responds different to essential oils. It is possible that when you layer essential oils, and that is something that Gary taught quite a bit, as I'm sure you're aware, that when you apply essential oils in a layered function, that you can get greater benefits than applying single essential oils. Now, that said, everybody has a different experience with different essential oils. So something that may appear to magnify something to me may not magnify it to another person.
Okay.
So I would suggest you try what you would like to according to the label usage directions and see what experience that provides for you.
Okay, Doctor.
It's very difficult. Yeah, it's very difficult to say something that will work for everyone.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Totally
right.
agree.
Because everyone are different. Yep.
Correct.
Agree ya, Bu Pau?
Okay. Thank
Cukup
you for
kah?
your time.
Thank you.
Terima kasih Bu Pau.
Thanks Aaron. Thanks Richard. And
Terima
thanks.
kasih.
Thank you.
Oke, ada pertanyaan lagi atau sudah? Sudah cukup ya teman-teman di rumah. Wow, nggak berasa loh 2 jam. Saya sih rasanya baru 5 menit ya. It feels like only 5 minutes for me. It's already 2 hours. So thank you so much Farun, thank you so much Richard. Dan ibu-ibu yang di rumah sudah 3 kali kita mengadakan tour. Maksud utama kami memang supaya kita lebih mengerti tentang Citusil, komitmen dari Young Living. Bahwa komitmen kami berasal mulai dari benih ketika kita belajar 2 minggu yang lalu bersama dengan David Little, bersama dengan Nicholas Landell, mulai dari benih, kemudian kita belajar tentang nursery, kita belajar tentang bahkan serangga yang kita praktek tanam organik itu kita bahkan menggunakan serangga ya. Jadi kita tidak menggunakan hal-hal yang anorganik. Lalu setelah dari farm kemana? Nggak berhenti loh teman-teman, produk dari Young Living terus akan berlanjut bergulir ke laboratorium. Yang sudah kita lihat hari ini memiliki banyak sekali instrumen analisa yang sangat canggih untuk menentukan kualitas essential oil kita. Menentukan bahwa kita nggak main-main ketika kita bilang 100% essential oil murni karena memang ada tesnya. Kita nggak main-main ketika kita mengatakan tidak ada hal-hal yang sintetis. Kita juga sudah menguji pestisidanya. Jadi setiap komponen yang ada di dalam Young Living Essential Oil ini benar-benar diuji di laboratorium di Gary Young Research Institute. Semoga memberi pencerahan ya untuk teman-teman yang masih bertanya, kenapa sih harus Young Living Essential Oil? Kenapa bukan yang lain? Jawabannya ada di 3 hari ini kita punya kelas sesi virtual dan semoga untuk teman-teman yang kangen pengen datang ke ladang kita, ke perkebunan kita, terobati ya lewat virtual ini. Karena dalam keadaan pandemi, semoga kita tidak berangkat mungkin ke perkebunan, tapi perkebunannya kita terbangkan ke Indonesia atau kitanya terbang ke sana lewat virtual event kita. Okay, Varun and also Richard, I have so many education by this 2-hour session today. Thank you so much. Maybe Richard and Varun, you want to say something about this event, about our members. What do you think about our market, please?
It's been my pleasure to join you this afternoon, and we're very excited to continue to work with your market and with your wonderful members. And if you have some additional questions, you are most welcome to send them to me, and we will do our best to answer them. Thank you.
Varun, thank you, Richard. Maybe you want to say something, Varun?
Yeah, I'm thrilled with the amount of questions and the details that were asked. This has been great. First, I want to thank you, Lisa, and also the whole Indonesian team for letting us be part of this event. And it's great to interact with our members always and get their feedback and understand their questions. So it's been really great to participate with our Indonesian team. Our mission is to create world-class products with strict seed-to-seal guidelines. There's some interesting products that are in the pipeline for Indonesian market, and we'll be thrilled to share with you soon. And like Richard said, reach out to us if you have additional questions, and we'll do our best to answer them. And thank you. Yeah, thanks for letting us be part of this.
And now is our turn to say thank you for you, Richard, for making sure that our essential oil and all of our product have the highest quality without nothing synthetic in there. No pesticide in there, only the highest and purest quality of essential oil and another product. Thank you to you, Varun. I think you work 24/7, I guess, to make sure we always have the best product development, always have ideas, always have the best product that fit the market needs. Thank you so much for Varun and your team. So, leaders, thank you so much untuk join di 2 jam sesi kita yang tidak terasa hanya saya pikir 5 menit saja. Saya berharap kami semua satu tim di sini, kira-kira ada 100 orang di ruangan ini mungkin. Enggak. Karena protokol kesehatan ya. Banyak tim yang living di sini yang membantu. Terima kasih semua tim dari yang living. Terima kasih semua ibu-ibu di rumah. Semoga memberikan pencerahan tentang kenapa harus yang living. Because all we want is a healthy home for each of us and a healthy world for all of us. Thank you, Varun. Thank you, Richard.
Yeah.
Thank you, Young Living Indonesia.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Have
you.
a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you.